be interviewing Mr. Douglas. So, Mr. Douglas, why did you want to become a teacher?
Well, when I was in elementary school, we lived in a neighborhood. We had a neighbor, next door neighbor, that was a teacher that later became a counselor, and then I had an interview project when I was in elementary school. I had to interview someone like you're doing now, and at that time he was a history teacher, and so I asked him about his job being a teacher, and so that's kind of when I wanted to be a history teacher, and that was probably in elementary school, probably 4th or 5th grade, maybe it was probably 5th grade, I would say, when I wanted to become a teacher, just from knowing him, and I was friends with his children, so that's when I wanted to be a teacher.
What'd you major in college?
I did a major. I majored in history because I wanted to be a history teacher. I didn't stay with that. I ended up going into business, taking business classes, and then graduated. Thinking that I was just going to go into business, but then I decided to go ahead and get my teaching certificate, and so I went ahead and got teacher certified, and then I was certified in history, and then I later went back to school to get my master's degree in special education and special education testing.
Okay. How long have you been teaching for?
This is my 17th year of teaching. I started teaching in, I believe, 1998, and then I was out for almost 5 years. I got out of teaching, and then I decided to go back just so I'd have a better schedule, wouldn't have to travel as much because I had young children at home.
So what did you do for those 5 years when you wasn't a teacher?
I was an engineer. I worked for a large company. I worked for BNSF. I was an engineer. And doing that, I had to travel quite a bit, so I was out of town a lot. So I made the decision to go back to teaching, and so I didn't have to travel for work.
So, is there any other person that inspired you to become a teacher?
I would just say my neighbor that was a history teacher and then later a high school counselor. He's probably the one that inspired me to be a teacher. I kind of wanted to do that, go that route. I didn't end up going that way, but I liked the way it worked out. I'm glad I went with special ed. It was just something that kind of, I was interviewing for a job when I was in college, or I was in graduate school at that point, and I was doing getting my teacher certificate, and then they hired me that day. So I went in to apply for a job, and then they hired me as a full-time teacher. It was just something that kind of I wasn't expecting, never thought about. But after the interview, he asked me if I could come back for another interview, and then he brought in a principal, and then so they talked to me. They were needing a teacher, and so then they hired me that day as a teacher in a field that I wasn't familiar with. So I went ahead and took the job as a special ed teacher. And at that point, they had I didn't have my Texas teaching certification, and I got it while I was teaching, and then I went ahead and went to graduate school and got my master's in special ed and in testing, but